Hi, I'm Kyle. I'm the creator of Nightmare Tag. I apologize because this video is long overdue. I've been making this game for like 9 months, so this video is going to be kind of more like a recap. I got inspired to make this game back in March 2022. I got into the whole backrooms and liminal space stuff. It just kind of clicked when I thought I would love to play tag in a liminal environment, and I got a really good VR horror game idea, so I'm just gonna do it. Then a month later, I graduated college and nothing was in my way, so I got straight to work. I just really wanted something playable by October because it's a horror game and that's spooky season. Nightmare Tag is a PvP horror game where one person is the monster and everyone else tries to survive. The original game mode is to take out the monster by finding a VHS tape and playing it all the way through. The catch is that the monster can see you through walls when you're using electricity, so when you're trying to locate the VHS tape you're using electricity, and when you're playing it you also use electricity. So it kind of creates this loop of run and hide from the monster because you'll use electricity and then the monster will know where you are, and then you have to run, hide again until it's safe to use electricity again. The players can do a few things to fight back. They can first hide and go invisible by standing completely still. It's a VR game, so you have to be actually completely still. So if you're being chased and you cut off that line of sight, you can stand completely still, go invisible, and they'll have no idea where you are. I can't tell you how many times I've done this, but every time I do it, it's just as thrilling and exciting as the first time I've done it. As a human, you also have a flash gun. This can be used as a flashlight or a beam that can blind and slow the monster. There's been a lot of balancing here because at first I really wanted people to work together, like you needed 3 or 4 beams to actually do anything effective, but this kind of rarely happened and one beam wasn't enough to do anything, so the beam was basically useless. So after some changes and tests, I made it so that the flash gun, when fully charged, does max damage, and the more you use it, the less damage it does, but it regenerates. And this kind of added to the running and hiding loop by being able to blind, run, and then hide again. Along with your flash gun, you also have a scanner, which is used to locate the objective or the monster or your teammates. And you actually play VHS tapes by putting them in the back of the scanner and then pressing trigger to play it. The biggest difference between playing as a human and a monster is the way that you move. Humans use the joystick to determine their direction and then move their arms around to determine the speed. I think every VR game needs a solid movement mechanic. I like what I have for the humans because it tricks your brain into thinking you're moving a little bit more because you're getting your body engaged in the movement. It gets you physically active, and it also makes going invisible a little harder because you're going like this and then all of a sudden you gotta freeze. The monster moves by grabbing the air and pulling itself, and it can keep doing this and build up speed. So naturally the monster's faster than the humans, but it is harder to control than a joystick, and this all kind of balances out the game. The humans can run in very precise directions because they use the thumbstick, but the monster is left kind of running around behind them, overshooting things, running into walls, making for a lot of near misses, which makes the game a lot more exciting. And that's kind of the basics of the game. You're either the monster and you try to eliminate everyone, or you're a human and you use the tools that you have to try to survive. In October 2022, I had something playable. It's a multiplayer game, so I had to organize a group of playtesters to play it with. And I did that and gave it a shot. In the first playtest, I only had one big unchangeable map, which proved to be too big and too mazy for only 5 players. But that was alright. I already had plans to make the map dynamic by dividing it up into zones. Each zone is 50 by 50 meters with connectors on each side. That way if you shuffle the zones around, it'll just fit together like a puzzle. Arranging the map like this was pretty cool too because you could just be chased from one environment to a completely different environment to another one all very quickly, and this kind of adds to like a dream or nightmare-like experience. But without wasting too much time, I just made a setting for map sizes and fixed all the initial bugs, and that's kind of when I decided it was time to put the game out there, get more playtesters, get more feedback, and just grow this game. The problem is, to get the best experience with this game, you need to play with people, and at the time there was no one playing this game, so if you wanted to playtest by yourself, it was just impossible. I put out some posts on TikTok and Reddit, just getting people onto a Discord server so that I could playtest this game often. And I end up playtesting with these people like 4 times a week. Honestly, it's felt like so long at this point, I just have no idea where the game would be without this type of feedback. Like, all the people in the Discord have found holes in the game quite literally and figuratively, and just playing the game so often and having all these ideas to bounce off of. So I'm just shouting out to everybody that's helped playtest so far and has just contributed in the Discord. Thank you so much. I've added a lot of stuff since October, and I'm definitely skipping over a lot of initial features that I've added since the beginning, but hopefully I'll make a video on some stuff in the future. But for now, I'm just going to go over the main game mechanics that I've added since the beginning. I initially wanted the monster to be able to shuffle around the zones mid-game, this way players would always feel lost and disoriented, but players already felt that way and the monster needed a better way to find people. Instead, I took a little bit of time just to make this map menu in the pregame area, that way players can determine which map size they're playing on and which zones they're playing with. And this kind of just let me see which maps people like the best. Along with the map settings, I also added some game settings just so I could play around with the values and see what settings made the game more enjoyable and more balanced. When we started doing playtests, most of the players really enjoyed the smaller and more open maps, and I think this is because it made for a faster paced game, like you were constantly in and out of being chased, but it was kind of my goal to make bigger maps more playable. I just kind of like the longer breaks in between the chases. There's something more suspenseful there. One of the biggest problems with bigger maps is that the monster just wouldn't run into anybody, and this wasn't a problem on smaller maps, but on bigger maps you just had no idea if you were getting close to people because they could have just ran into a different zone. So to help the monster track people down, I added the portal room. This room has a door to each zone, and if a zone isn't active it'll just turn off, and if a human is in that zone the door will actually shine red. That way the monster can teleport back to the portal room whenever it wants, and it can just be like, oh, there's humans in this zone, I'm gonna go to that zone. Humans can also use these portals, but they can't teleport here. They have to actually go in through the zone door into the portal room and then teleport back out through a door. It's kind of a risky place to be if you're a human, but it definitely makes for a fun escape. Adding the portal room conveniently solved another issue where the monster would just spawn on the map with all the players at the beginning of the game, but now the monster actually had a place to spawn, and I could set a getaway time and just close all the portals, and then once the timer's up, open up all the portals. The monster's main ability is Seeker Mode, and this has been in the game since day one, but I should talk about it because there has been a lot of changes here. When in Seeker Mode, the monster is invisible. It can also see electricity use through walls, but it's unable to kill people in this state. Up until the Funky update, Seeker Mode was insanely slow, and when the monster wasn't in Seeker Mode, it was insanely fast. Then one day I just reversed it. The Seeker was insanely fast, and the monster was just kind of relatively slow, like it could still catch up to people and kill them. This ended up changing the game in so many ways. For one, before you could just hear the monster just stomping around everywhere because that was the fastest way to get around, but when you're in Seeker Mode there's no stomping, it's just kind of this ghostly whisper. So now the monster is using Seeker Mode to get around the map quickly, which makes it very hard to tell where the monster's coming from, which makes the game a whole lot scarier. And plus, once it does end up seeing you and it's close to you, the stomping's like all of a sudden right next to you, again making the game a whole lot scarier. This conveniently solved another issue too, where players just had no time to apply damage when the monster was just too quick, but now that it was kind of slow, you kind of had that chance to apply damage with your flash gun. Before I made this movement speed switch, it was very easy for humans to just juke around the monster in tight areas because it was so hard to control at high speeds. So if you're chasing someone for too long, consider trapping them in a Zonelock. A Zonelock is this giant rock sphere which traps humans inside, and if a human's in there, they'll slowly lose their vision and slowly lose their movement speed, making them super easy to catch. If you're a human, this might sound overpowered, but if you have a good place to go invisible, then you're pretty much fine. You just gotta wait 20 seconds for the Zonelock to disappear. Or if you can blind the monster, then do that and then burn the Zonelock, which only takes 3 seconds to break right now. Then I added this really fun game mode where instead of dying and becoming a ghost, you'd become a monster as well. But this became an issue with zone locks because people were just trapping each other in each other's zone locks and it wasn't helping anybody. So I quickly added this feature where monsters can break zone locks by hitting it with their claws, and problem solved. Another problem I was running into is that sometimes players just wouldn't go for the objective and just stay invisible for the entire game, which made it pretty frustrating for the monster. And sometimes players were just really smart. They would go invisible when the monster got close and then just stay invisible until it left, also making it pretty frustrating. There was also just dull moments as the monster where you just had no idea where to go, even with the portal room. To counter all of this, I added entity eyes. The monster would put these eyes on walls and they'll point to the nearest human. If the eye has a direct line of sight with someone, that person's taken out of invisibility, and if the monster's in seeker mode, they'll see that person through walls. The monster can only place 4 of these down at a time, and humans can easily take these out by shining their beam on it for 1 second. Now there's no dull moments as the monster. You can always pull out an eye and just point to the nearest person, or if that person's just staying invisible for the whole game, you'll eventually place an eyeball that exposes them. It's a super powerful tool for the monster. I use it constantly, so there's probably going to be some balancing changes in the future. This is a game setting that I added recently, so when disabled, the monster won't be able to see people when it's in seeker mode, unless an eyeball has a direct line of sight. This setting gives players a lot more time to run and hide, because when you know the monster's in seeker mode and you don't see an eyeball, you know it's safe to run around. We haven't playtested with it that much, but so far it's proved to be a lot more balanced and people seem to like it. So the monster sounds pretty overpowered now. But even with all these changes, if you're sneaky enough, you could survive and play the VHS tape. It's just pretty difficult. To make it easier, I wanted human abilities to really enhance the running and hiding thing that I got going on. I also wanted every game to feel different and unique in some way, so I added abilities in the form of loot that you acquired during the game. I also didn't want players to manage a lot of items when they're running for their life, so these abilities come in the form of attachments for your main items, the scanner and the flash gun, which I forgot to mention, you can always bring back to your player by pressing the pocket button. So if you get an attachment, you don't have to worry about losing it. If it's attached to your main item, you can always bring it back to you. These abilities aren't just small buffs either, like faster running speed or a more powerful beam. These abilities really shake up the game, because before I added these attachments, Nightmare Tag kind of felt like I made a FPS shooter but only added pistols. I needed the fun weapons in the game that really take it to the next level. So I brainstormed a ton of ideas and just started with 4 of them. So we got the wings, which let people fly. We got the portal attachment, which shoots portals that link to a random zone door. We got the invisibility tape, which makes this invisibility bubble, and if you're in that bubble, you're invisible, even if you're moving. We got the advanced scanner, which scans for things in a 3D space instead of just displaying it on your 2D scanner screen. And we also got the resurrection tape, which brings back everyone that's dead. When I was in the process of adding the resurrection tape, I thought about how frustrated I would be if I killed everybody but one person and then that one person plays the resurrection tape just to have the game basically restart. So I decided to make this attachment an option, and I made it an option in the game settings called Last Human Standing attachments because it only spawns in when there's one person alive. I plan to have more in this category of attachments, but for now there's only one. Besides the advanced scanner and the resurrection tape, all the abilities offer a fun way to escape from the monster, which was the initial goal. And besides just making the plane a little bit faster, I thought that it would need more balancing, but everything just seemed to fit in the game really well. The loot you find in this game can't just spawn on the floor. That would be lame. And for a while, that's how you would find the VHS tape, just lying on the ground. The spawn points also started to feel predictable, so I wanted something that felt unpredictable. I'm going to cut to the chase here. I added monkeys. They added so much to the game and solved so many of these issues. Although Nightmare Tag takes place in a liminal dreamscape, the zones felt pretty lifeless, which is on brand, but if you weren't being chased by a monster, all you would hear is this atmospheric hum. And monkeys kind of added this other layer and another reason to listen. If you heard a monkey, that means loot, and if you have a really good ear, you can tell if that monkey's holding on to something. Also, not many people know this because I took it out right before I shared it with playtesters, but monkeys used to jump on your face and laugh at you until you grabbed them and pulled them off. I wanted a reason for monkeys to be feared. I wanted you to get in, grab your loot, and then try to run away from them. And the jumping and latching onto your face and laughing at you was just kind of getting annoying. So instead I made it so that if you're within range and you have stuff on you, the monkey will jump at you and try to steal something. It'll just grab whatever it can. So you can either run away from it or you could give it an item and it will just leave you alone. It's still kind of annoying, but it's not as annoying. It also leads to some pretty fun moments, like I've seen a monkey jump and steal the wings attachment off somebody flying away from a monster. I've also seen this strategy where people put the VHS tape while it's being played on a monkey's back, that way the monster chases after the monkey. So monkeys are how loot spawn in Nightmare Tag. It doesn't just solve my loot spawning on the ground issue or the spawning locations being predictable, it also adds this new fear of being stolen from. So that kind of wraps up all the major things I've changed and added since the game's beginning. There's also been a ton of small changes and additions, and I definitely didn't talk about the biggest challenges to get a game like this going in the first place. I just wanted to introduce the game and talk about its major features, because there's no documentation about this game outside of the update log on Discord or if you just play the game. So I hope this video sheds some light on the game and its progress so far, but I keep adding things and fixing things and changing things, so I just kind of want to talk about what I'm working on right now and moving forward. Nightmare Tag at its core is manhunt. One person starts as it and then more people become it or slowly die off until you're the last person, and that's exactly the feeling I'm going for. I've expanded on it a little bit with the invisibility or the electricity through the walls or playing the VHS tape, but there could be other ways to play this game. I've already experimented a little bit with stripping the game down and removing abilities, no VHS tape to play, just simply tag by killing each other, which proved to be a lot of fun. But I'm currently working on an elimination game mode, which also stems from a childhood game. In elementary school, we played this free-for-all version of soccer where you had to score to get into the next round, and if you were the last person to score, you were eliminated. You would eliminate someone each round until it was just a 1v1, and that was kind of like the final showdown. I think something like this would be really cool in Nightmare Tag because right now the goal is just to survive, but now if you add an escape to make it to the next round, your goal is to survive and escape. So if you don't escape that round, you'll become it for the next round as well, which makes each round a little more difficult. Right now I'm working with elevators, which means everybody could escape at the same time, meaning everybody progresses to the next round. But you could also be the only one to escape if everyone dies that round. But there's a reason to be quick about your escape. After you take the elevator to the next level, you can either go back down and save more people, or you could acquire a tool that actually kills the monster and ends the game. But it is risky, because if you go back, you could die or be left behind. But if you manage to survive and make it back out, you could potentially end the game. I haven't added any of that yet. Right now I'm just making sure the elevators work. Playing the game is super fun, but I really like to be rewarded for playing, and the best way to reward a player is a sense of evolution or progression. Right now I'm thinking that every game that you play will get you some tokens, and the better you play, the more tokens you'll get. And just to make it interesting, I'd love to add a betting system to the beginning of a game just so the prize money's a little more juicier and the stakes are a little higher because your tokens are on the line. You'll then use your tokens at this progression / upgrade / shop area that's going to be in the style of an amusement park. And different parts of the park will have different things to upgrade. Characters will be something that you can upgrade. Characters will have a list of abilities that you can upgrade that are themed to the character. For example, there could be a monkey tamer type character that has abilities that have to do with monkeys, like maybe a monkey won't scream when you grab it, or a max level monkey tamer won't be jumped at and stolen from by monkeys. There's also going to be abilities that can't be grouped together into a character. These abilities will be called unique characteristics. Each character has a limited amount of unique characteristics, and maybe you have to unlock these slots by upgrading the character itself. So that's been all my important thoughts on the game. I tried to keep it as short as possible, but there was a lot to talk about. If you want me to talk about something I didn't mention, or you want me to elaborate on something in the video, just leave a comment. And if you're interested in playing the game, there's a relatively bug-free version of it on SideQuest. Just look up Nightmare Tag. If you made it all the way to the end, I want to say thank you, and that's it. See ya.